our favorite holiday memories with each other.
Areeba, sorry.
Yes.
Our pastor is here, so we will do the interfaith panel.
We will? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Pause on that. First, we're going to have our interfaith panel. How do different faith cultures celebrate holidays? Okay. Saminati?
Yes.
Do you think that microphone or what? Okay, please give her a warm round of applause.
Well, my name is Danielle Parish. I'm the pastor at Spark Church in Palo Alto. We meet at Congregation Eid Festival on Sunday afternoons at 4:30. And we've been really just deeply grateful for their generosity for the past 4 years as we've been meeting there together. I don't think I constitute an interfaith panel. I will only be representing myself as a follower of Jesus. One of the things that, as we're sitting in this church and I get to see such amazing diversity and adorable kiddos dancing up in front, I just want to thank First United Methodist again for their hospitality and for American Muslim Boys continuing to lead in our community. We are in a unique space in Palo Alto in the San Francisco Bay Area where we get to watch our different respect for one another, holy envy for one another as we come into spaces like this, where underneath a big cross, which is important for persons practicing my faith oftentimes and poinsettias for our holiday season, we can have an amazing Muslim celebration as well. And I'm just deeply grateful for that reality. It's not one that can be found easily throughout the rest of the world, nor always here just in the United States. So part of my holiday celebration this year is just to continue to be grateful for light in the midst of darkness and hope, pushing through some of those cracks as we see what it is God is able to do in our midst here in the Bay. For a Christian, we celebrate Christmas around this time, not because necessarily we believe that Christ was actually born on December 25th, and you can get into all the fun histories as to why December 25th was picked, and winter solstice, and other things as a time to celebrate the birth of Jesus. But we do remember that Christ, God, Messiah, wrapped himself up in human form, in flesh, and came and dwelt among us. This is what the Gospel of John tells us at the beginning of our text, that the Word became flesh and made his dwelling amongst us. And in the beginning of Matthew, the angel comes and says that you will give birth to a child and he will be Emmanuel, God with us. This is what we as Christians believe and celebrate this time of year. We remember the time when God chose to wrap himself up into human flesh as a first century Jew and walk around and try to teach us how to live. Much of our time when we talk about what Christians believe, we spend a lot of time talking about maybe the birth of Jesus around this time of year, and then come Easter we'll talk about the death and the burial and the resurrection of Jesus. But there's a lot that happens in between those two events, about 30 plus years of life. And our Gospels tell us, our stories about Jesus, take great pains to make sure that we watch how Jesus lives. We watch how he treats those that are marginalized, that are outcast, that are poor, that are suffering, the widows, the children. And for me, part of what we can do during this celebration as a follower of Jesus is continue to stand with those that are marginalized because our Messiah Jesus taught us to do so. So as we look at the news and we see Aleppo, as we see those suffering in Iraq and Mosul, as we see those suffering here in our own neighborhood as a result of poverty or disenfranchisement, of racism and institutionalized criminality within our criminal system, all of these things we can look towards and say, yes, and God, Jesus for us as Christians, wraps himself up in flesh and demands that we live an incarnated life amongst those who are suffering. That Jesus calls us to love God, to love our neighbor, and even those whom we presume to be enemies, to reach out to those who are poor, who are hungry, who are thirsty, and who are in deep need, who are in prison, who are lonely, who are sick, and to go and to be with one another. And as I've got to know Sumina and the rest of the community here at American Muslim Boys, and also as we've seen at this synagogue that we get to be sort of members at large of, how we've been so deeply cared by watching that ethic come forward in all of these three great monotheistic faiths for loving and caring for the sick, for the poor, for those that are oppressed. And we find what we have in common and what we can have holy envy for one another for. We can go, wow, I love that tradition. I love your expression of your faith, and I can see beauty in that, and I can see a harmony in that between my own practice of faith. So I've just been deeply grateful for all of that, and that's what we do at our church as we celebrate the remembering of Jesus coming into our lives and in this world. We try to find a way to live that out. On a personal note, my daughter got very sick a few weeks ago, and we were in the hospital. She's fine now. We were in the hospital in the ICU for several days, and during that time, I had persons from all different faith traditions, friends of mine, right? This is when you find out if you're actually friends or if you just sit next to each other in a row. Have you ever, right? You know, sometimes, and from Christians to non-Christians to Muslims to Jews, coming, dropping things off at our home, offering to cook meals, and giving us an expression of faith. And all I could do in deep gratitude was to say, thank you, God, that we are in a community where when my daughter, who's only 2, gets ill, she gets to see the best, the most loving portions of humanity come and wish her well. And I'm just grateful that we are creating that world together. No matter what's going on in our nation or in the world at large, we all get the opportunity to continue to live in love and in peace towards one another, and we'll continue to choose that as Spark Church and as followers of Jesus in the Palo Alto Bay Area, and we'll continue to stand with our Muslim brothers and sisters and our Jewish brothers and sisters so that they might have the same beautiful opportunities to live out their faith in our community, and we can learn from one another. So Sumina, I don't know if you have any other faith representatives? Yes, a few others? Oh, wonderful. So thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to celebrating with you today.
Thank you so much. Next, I would like to call our Muslim representative, Khalid Saeed, who is the National President of American Muslim Voice. Please give him a warm welcome.
Assalamualaikum, ladies and gentlemen. May God's peace and blessings be upon all of you. When I say Assalamualaikum, you can say same to you. Assalamualaikum. It means peace and blessing on all of you. Eid, I just heard Jesus was maybe not born on 25th, and Eid is not celebrated on this day either. But Eid is a happy occasion, and among friends and family we can celebrate happiness all the time. And it is so heartwarming to see all of you today on a Saturday celebrating off-season celebration with us today over here. So basically, I live in Sacramento. Whenever I drive over here for long distance, I keep a margin. But today, 45-minute margin was not enough because there was a cop driving in front of me. So I'm sorry I was late. Nevertheless, how do we celebrate Eid? I remember from my childhood days, I was going to school in a big city, Lahore. Our farm, small farm, is 100 miles away, and my grandmother used to live over there. So all my family, my parents, my uncles, we will just go to the village over there and celebrate Eid with our grandmother. All the family was together. My dad used to take pictures on that day, and since we are all here as a family, I want you guys to give me a smiling face, and I'm going to take a picture. Actually, more than one. Because my wife is sitting on this side. Thank you very much. So it's a happy occasion. If you watch Fox TV or something like that, you may think we just do one or two things, but we dance. Look at those talented kids and their mother who trains them and choreographs them and directs them. She can make a wonderful move. So it's a happy occasion. I wanted to basically thank all of you for coming here. and thanks Samina Sanders. She's a one-man army, and one-woman army, I think. She does so much for our community and community at large. We are one community. All Americans are one community. God created Adam and Eve. Somebody might not like that. I know Darwin is there, but I believe in Adam and Eve, and we are one family. We just got too big. And when family is big, even when we go to a restaurant, sometimes we fight. We are going to Italian or Chinese or Pakistani. So conflict, disagreements are there, but we need to learn to live together in peace and harmony. And that's what Eid does for us Muslims. Our families get together. Sometimes we are not talking to each other. Sometimes we don't get along. But when we go to our grandmother's house, everybody has to be polite and smiling. So it's a happy occasion. On a broader sense, I don't have too much time, but I would like to just make one point. And I really appreciate all of you. I used to listen to talk radio. And if somebody listens to Tom Sullivan from Sacramento, he used to be in Sacramento, now he's on national radio. They open up the program, one day he opened his program, and he poses a question to audience to respond. And he said, you know, we are so politically correct. You can say, I mean, you can, if you say something negative, politically incorrect, if you use N-word, if you talk bad about a group or sex or whatever, you know, everybody condemns it. People get upset. People get fired for that. But he says, it's a strange thing. You can say anything about Muslims, about their book, about their prophet, about their religion, and nobody cares. Nobody speaks up. Nobody condemns it. Why is that? He said, even animals have PETA, and they speak up. But why is this that the Muslims get ignored? And you'll be surprised to hear that that was before 9/11. I heard it myself while driving the car. So after 9/11, I always talk about fearing. It's a happy occasion, but I'll end in a happy note. Fear Inc., please Google it. There are foundations who are spending millions of dollars for last 12, 15 years or so to create Islamophobia and hate. And I'm connecting it with Tom Sullivan's conversation. And then if we look at today, look at this change. Now, Jewish Voices for Peace is organizing vigils throughout the United States against hate and Islamophobia. Please give this thought a Huffington Post had a survey type of thing. You sign up if Muslims are going to be registered, that you will register too, and thousands of people are signing up on that. So this is heartwarming. This makes me happier on this happy occasion. And all of you are here. It's Samina's work, it's several other people's work, and it's interfaith work. Actually, I'm a lay person, but I'm a member of Muslim ecumenical ministries. I sit with the priests and we talk about social issues, cultural issues, and getting along with building bridges. And they are posting on my Facebook comments of support. This is heartwarming. So I basically want to be proud being an American. I'll be proud that I'm living here. Besides, I'm not in Iraq or Pakistan or Syria right now. It's a good place to be here. So we need to work together to keep it this way. Hate hurts us all. it really does hurt us all, whether we know it or not. If I'm talking here at my home, my kids are listening to me, and then they act. If you don't believe me, look at that Mr. Roof, who's being in the court right now, who killed in black churches. He's a Christian guy, but he heard the hate and he went and he killed peace-loving worshippers in the church. So anyway, welcome. Thank you very much. Pretty soon lunch is going to be served, and this was all happy things. I don't want to be bad guy standing between lunch and you. So thank you very much again.
We promised to the lunches at 1 o'clock. I just wanted to say, 2 days before, we just had a press conference here. And within 2 days, we had 16 most wonderful, most busiest interfaith, intercommunity people speaking. And KQED was the only radio that covered, because nobody wants to cover good news. So that's why we have to be ambassadors of each other. So we cover our own good news. One of the pastors from NAACP during the press conference asked me for a Muslim name. He said, if they're going to ask you to register, we are all going to register. And I want to have a Muslim name. And I told him, you don't have to change your name, it's okay. Even if you become Muslim, you can keep your name. He said, no, I want a Muslim name. So I gave him a Muslim name, which is Muhammad, and he was thrilled.
Thank you. Next, I would like to call upon Rosenberg, who is a member of Temple Emmanuel in San Jose, to talk about her Jewish celebrations during the holidays.
Assalamuallaika. Thank you so much, Samina, for organizing this. I was thrilled to see the event because this seems like now more than ever is the time to really be not only getting to know each other better, but to find out about our similarities, how they tie us together, and the history of our holidays and how we celebrate as part of that. Probably all of our holidays involve a lot of food, a lot of music. When I was growing up, Hanukkah was often talked about or thought of as the Jewish Christmas. And partly because it falls at that time of year, and partly because it has become here so Americanized, where we exchange gifts, sometimes for the entire 8 nights, sometimes only on 1 night. But in that respect, it always had to compete with Christmas here, which is far more popular, and certainly when I was growing up, far more glittery and glamorous. And we cry for a Christmas tree and so forth. But I want to recall to you a history lesson from when I was in religious school in my teens. And it really expanded upon the kind of basic Hanukkah story, which takes place, for those who might not be familiar with it, roughly around 170 BC. And the basic storyline is that the Assyrians had conquered the Hebrews. The temple was destroyed, and when the temple was finally regained after about 100 years of battle, Judas Maccabee and his brothers led the Jews in battle to regain their holy building, to regain their territory. It was quite miraculous, and everything had been destroyed except one small container of oil that still had the holy seal on it and was considered still permissible to use. And that oil that was only enough for 1 night burned for 8 nights, which is why we light candles for 8 nights. And we know that is kind of the framework of the story, and it is the background of the symbolism of the lights. But far from being a minor holiday, which growing up Jewish you can often think of Hanukkah as, it might be the most fun, but it's not the most important holiday. Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are far more important. But what this teacher taught us in the Jewish history class in my teens was that in many ways this is the pivotal holiday, the survival of a people and the survival of a religion and a way of life, because in that age, which in some ways is not so different from our own, the way to destroy your enemy, and not necessarily in the sense of killing them all, but making them no longer different, the way to assimilate them, destroy them as being other or being separate, was to simply destroy the physical center. So if they no longer have a physical house of worship and the physical objects of worship, that's usually sufficient, and they will die out as a different group of people and become part of the dominating culture or the conquering culture. And so the real miracle of Hanukkah in this view and in this telling is that for 100 years, the people survived and they kept their practice, their faith, their culture alive for roughly a century with no physical center. They didn't have a house of worship, the place where all the rituals and traditions typically took place and where the holy scriptures were. They maintained their tradition and their teachings and then went on to become a flourishing people. So I thought it's good to teach that, because what we normally only hear about is the holy oil and the miracle of the oil and the 8 nights in presence. But it is a story about the people holding on to their center, continuing to teach their ways, and continuing to survive and prosper. And it strikes me that now we really are looking at a world of division, a world of separation, and so much negative energy. And it is a great lesson for us at any time to learn how to hold on to our center, the grounding in our faith, in our beliefs, in our customs, our traditions, and to learn about other people. What is central in their lives? How does it work? To find our common ground, and even if we don't find very much in common, just to connect. And if we start to build circles of connection, those are additional centers to our lives, both as individuals and as communities. So I wanted to offer that today. And I thought in closing I might speak a very short poem by Hafiz, which is written in Persian originally, translated by Danielle Parish, is his most probably best known American English translator now. And that poem is called This Sky. This sky where we live is no place to lose your wings. So love, love, love.
Thank you so much to all 3 of our panelists. I feel like it was a very spiritual and powerful thing to see all 3 of them talking to all of us. So now I want to take about 10 minutes for all of us to go and talk to each other about our favorite holiday memories. Oftentimes, the only people we talk to about our holidays are those who share our faith. But it's important to make sure that we celebrate it with everyone and with people of every faith. So let's take a few minutes to come and talk to each other about our favorite holiday memories.